Hello and welcome back to Bicycle Legs and another edition of Bicycle Legs Discovers Rush. And today my very special guest is Mr. Bill Schuster. You might know him as a guest on the Contrarians or several other channels that you probably subscribe to that I've also been on. Bill, great to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be part of the series here.
Oh, no, I'm really pleased to finally have you on the channel.
Yeah, this is my first appearance. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, Bill and I first got to know each other. We did a Contrarian show about Joe Jackson that took months to come out.
Yes.
Because of all sorts of technical difficulties, mostly on my end. But yeah, it was a really good show. It's out now, so you can check that out. So, Bill, why don't you tell us which Rush album you've given me as my homework assignment, a little bit about that album, and particularly why you've chosen this album for me to listen to.
All right. For astute Rush fans, I don't know how well you can see it. My shirt might have given it away. This is, though I did not see this tour, my wife bought me a shirt from the tour. It's Counterparts from 1993. I actually picked this album originally because I thought I was initially going to be following up the two 80s Peter Collins produced albums. And this is also one of the other two Peter Collins produced Rush albums. So I wanted to kind of give you a bit of a different aspect of his production, among other things. Okay. Just to compare and contrast a little, see what you thought of that. But also, this album in particular is special to me because this is the album that actually essentially made Rush my favorite band. When it came out, I was a casual fan up to that time. I enjoyed the things that, here in North America were played on rock radio stations constantly. There was anywhere from 10 to 20 different Rush songs I could hear on the radio from various albums throughout their career.
Yeah.
When this came out, the only song I heard on the radio, oddly enough, was Nobody's Hero. Apparently Stick It Out was the first single, and it was a big rock radio hit, but I never heard it. But as soon as I heard Nobody's Hero, the lyrics just struck me. And something about that, what Neil Peart's lyrics were doing in that song just seemed so not quite fitting to rock radio at that time. He seemed a little ahead of his time for some of the things he was getting into there. And I liked the sound of it. I liked that acoustic guitar sound, which was a bit odd for them at that time. It was something kind of fresh and new. So I bought this album, and it just happened to coincide with the time that I was getting a divorce. And there are many lyrics on this that could be related to human relationships. I don't want to go too much in depth, and I want to hear your thoughts on those things. But
yeah,
let's just say this got played a lot during my separation and my divorce many years ago when it was fresh. So it kind of had a personal connection there. And this helped put me into the Rush superfan category, essentially.
Cool.
I'm one of the unusual ones in that the lyrics to me are possibly more important than the lyrics for this band. I mean, I'm sorry, the lyrics are possibly more important than the music.
Yeah.
As much as they're known for being wonderful musicians.
Yeah.
Those lyrics are pretty key.
Yeah, that's something that's been a recurring theme throughout the Rush albums I've been listening to so far, is the sort of depth of Neil Peart's lyrics. The subject matter he tackles, and also the way he tackles it. A lot of hard rock bands have quite banal lyrics. You definitely can't say that of Rush.
No.
All right. Well, let's get into the album. And the first song is Animate. Now, this is a really hard rocking start to the album. I really like this. I've noticed so far that Rush are really good with album openers too.
Yes.
Although I did note that by Rush standards that I'm used to so far, this is a fairly straightforward song. It's not sort of particularly proggy or knotty or that sort of thing. It's definitely sort of a hard rock song. And I did note that this was the first of a few songs on this album that do talk about personal relationships, as you were mentioning. And I noticed that was a theme throughout this album because, again, on the Rush albums that I've listened to thus far, that's not really been a topic that Neil's gone into a great deal. So that was something different for me with this album. I noted that the guitar solo in the bridge is quite Pink Floyd-y. It's got a definite Dave Gilmour sort of flavor to it. It's an energetic album opener. The only thing I'd say about this song is it's 6 minutes long, and I don't know if it quite needs to be 6 minutes long. Maybe sort of 4.5, 5 minutes would have done it. But that's a minor quibble. I really do like this song, though, for a starter.
This song was, it's one of those that's actually, it could be taken as a relationship song, but it was actually written as Neil exploring himself and the dichotomous nature of himself, the masculine and feminine aspects.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the themes throughout this album too, is I meant you look at the definition of counterparts, Merriam-Webster has a few things, one remarkably similar to another, one having the same function or characteristics as another, a thing that fits another perfectly, or something that completes. And I can see throughout this album now these themes definitely reappear. I wouldn't call it a concept album in the way that Clockwork Angels is a concept album, but I would definitely say this is a themed album.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely spot on about the Rush lyrics historically were not so much about human relationships or self-examination in this way. They were broader, less introspective. So, and yeah, I like the observation about David Gilmour too. I had noticed when re-listening a couple times today, I can't remember the song now, but there was another song in here where I thought that's a very Gilmour-esque sound. And I don't think I'd ever noticed that before, oddly, after 3 decades of listening to this album. So it's cool to still find new things like that.
Yeah. So the next song is Stick It Out. So you said this was the single on the off the album.
Yeah, apparently it was 4 weeks at #1 here in the States on rock radio. I don't know how I never heard it, but
I noted there's some really heavy riffing on here. One of the things that I'd been sort of given as a kind of spoiler before this album, before listening to this album, was that I'd heard that people said that this was Rush's grunge album. And apart from this song, I don't hear that on this album, but on this song, I do kind of hear it. It's not an out and out grunge song, but you can definitely hear the influence in the riffing and the sort of, drop down tuning and that sort of thing. The lyrics, again, you're talking about sort of things that go together. I sort of thought these lyrics were talking about a balancing, trying to balance between self-confidence and arrogance. Yeah. And it's a good crunchy song, but this song doesn't sound particularly rushy to me, at least from the sort of 4 albums that I've listened to previously. It does sound a little bit like they're chasing the sort of zeitgeist on this song, but only on this song. I don't think the rest of this album is, particularly grunge influenced at all.
Yeah, I think you're quite right on that. This song in particular, there's actually in the online Rush fan base over the years, this song's been a bit of a love it or hate it thing for many people. A lot of people thought this was kind of Rush's return to a harder rocking sound when they first heard it come out, apparently, but many others thought that they were playing too much to the trends at the time, trying to chase that Seattle sound a bit much, but which throughout their history they definitely do pick up on current influences. They were never shy about listening to what was going on around them at the time and absorbing and putting out their own little spin on it.
Yeah. Well, I did notice that with a couple of the 80s albums, like there was like, you could hear influences from bands like The Police and stuff.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying there. But as I said, it's really the only song on that on this album where I think they are sort of chasing that Seattle sound, as you say. I don't think the rest of it you can say that at all.
No.
So the next song is Cut to the Chase. It starts off a little quieter than the first two songs, but then gets very riffy in the chorus. Again, a fairly straightforward lyric, I think, about sort of chasing your dreams and sort of going after, you know, what you want in life. I probably like this song a little better than Stick It Out, but maybe not quite as much as Animate. I think Animate's just a really great album opener, and yeah, but it's still a really good song. I do quite like this one.
I would agree. I think it's I would actually probably rank them exactly as you said: Animate, Cut to the Chase, and Stick It Out. One of the lines that stood out for me here is the simple closer, the what kind of difference can one person make? It's a very simple line, but it's something I think that I in my daily life I return to. He's hardly the only person to have ever asked that question, but
Yeah, of course. And you know, the answer to that question really depends, doesn't it, on what picture you're looking at. I mean, in the great big picture of things, maybe not much, but within your own life and within the life of the people that you love and care about, you know, one person can make an enormous difference.
Exactly.
So yeah, then we get to Nobody's Hero, and you've already sort of talked a little bit about this song. And this is, you know, again, you know, I haven't had a great run with Rush ballads so far. They've tended to be my lesser favorite songs on the albums, and that's until I got to The Garden on Clockwork Angels, which I absolutely loved. I thought that was awesome. A beautiful, beautiful song. This is the same. This is absolutely gorgeous song. It's my favorite song on the album, no question.
Nice.
The lyric is both gorgeous and heartbreaking in equal measure. About people who aren't seen as heroes, but really, really should be. The lyric is very progressive for the time, I think. Sort of early 90s, you know, talking about, you know, gay rights, talking about women sort of being victims of sexual assault and that sort of thing. I do love the fact that on this album, and there's another song that we'll get to where I think it's a similar situation. When Rush get political, their politics are quite progressive, and I like that. It's an absolutely gorgeous song. The music is beautiful, still hard rocking in parts, but also very tender in parts. As I said, favorite song on the album, and I never thought I'd say that for a Rush ballad would be my favorite song on a Rush album, but there you go. So yeah, absolutely fabulous song.
I can't argue. As I said, that's the album I heard that made me buy the album and put me on the road to being such a huge fan. So I'm certainly not going to argue with the high praise for Nobody's Hero. And yeah, that those progressive lyrics, they definitely stood out amongst typical radio fare at the time on the rock stations.
Yeah,
it was kind of jarring at the time in a good way.
Well, I think we talked about this when we did the Joe Jackson show on the Contrarians, because we were talking about the song Real Men.
Yes.
Which was incredibly progressive for 1982. You know, so, and that was
one of my favorites.
That was a hit in Australia, that song. That was the hit single off Night and Day in Australia. Go figure.
Which I think is great because I think that's my favorite song on Night and Day.
Yeah. So the next song is Between Sun and Moon. And I said this was another fairly straightforward, by Rush standards, that is, song. Sort of, again, sort of lyrics about relationships, and again, that sort of duality going on in this lyric. The middle section in this song, the instrumental part, has a real Who flavor to it for me. So yeah, another song I quite liked. Yeah, but so far I'm missing a little bit of the progressive element of Rush on this album up to this point, but we'll get to that in the next song. So, but yeah, it's a good song, but it's again a fairly straightforward song.
I like Between Sun and Moon, but it's never been one of my favorites. I think I've never fully wrapped my head around the particular lyric. It's I have a general idea what he's going for there, but it doesn't quite hit me on a personal level like so many of the others do. It's a little too artsy and vague, maybe.
Yeah,
So
that's fair
but he
enough.
did have help with that one. That was there are 3 songs in the Rush catalog where Pi Dubois from Max Webster helped with lyrics.
Yeah.
That's one of the 3, so that might have something to do with it being a little more abstract. And
Yeah, here's a funny thing I don't think I've shared before, but I obviously hadn't got into Rush until I started doing this series. But I did own a Max Webster album. And funnily enough, it's Universal Juveniles.
with Battlestar.
And which has got a song that Rush appear on, which is funny enough. But the funny thing is I picked it up because I found it cheap in a record store that I was in. And I'd heard, people like Martin Popov go on and on about Max Webster. So I thought it was, $10 or $15. I thought it's worth taking a punt on. And the funny thing was, obviously, even the record store people here didn't know Max Webster very well because they had filed it under W instead of M. So they obviously thought Max Webster was a person.
Yeah.
But yeah. So now we get to Alien Shore. And I said this is actually sort of the first song on the album to have a bit of a proggy feel to it musically. Which, again, I like. And it's another song that's quite progressive lyrically too, which I really like too. Sort of the first verse being about sexism, the second verse being about racism. There's a bit more going on musically in this song, so I really, really like that. And there's some tasty playing from Alex in the middle section of this song.
Yes,
So yeah.
Yeah, I really like the some of the lines of the sex is not a competition, sex is not a job description, and so on and so forth. I'm pretty fond of the lyrics to this particular song.
Yeah.
One thing I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say the lyrics were not quite always this progressive. Neil grew.
Yeah.
So, in the early days.
I mean, I can relate to that. I certainly, 20 years ago, I probably wasn't nearly as progressive a person as I am now. So,
I thought I was, but I would agree with my own self too, which is I'd say we go against the stereotypes there where people are supposed to get more stodgy and conservative as they get older.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not doing that.
No.
But hey. So now we get into The Speed of Love. And I said this is probably the closest I've heard in the 5 albums that I've listened to so far to Rush doing an out-and-out love song. But unfortunately, the lyric and the music for this song don't really do an awful lot for me. I don't hate it. It's just by the standards of the Rush music that I've been exposed to so far, this song's a little undistinguished for me. It's probably my least favorite song on the album, but you know, I can understand why other people would really, really like it. It just, what I'm looking for in a Rush song isn't really here, but that's just me.
I could see that. I had actually thought when I was re-listening this last time, maybe it's partially because I've heard it so many times over the years too, but I thought it was a little musically boring compared to some of the other tracks on the album.
Yeah.
That's, I think some people just automatically dismiss it because it's a Rush song with love in the title, but
Yeah.
without ever getting to the music. But yeah, I would agree. That's one of the weaker songs on the album.
Yeah. You know, I haven't expected Rush to do, as I say, an out and out love song, just like I wouldn't expect a band, or I didn't expect a band like Midnight Oil to do songs about love until Earth and Sun and Moon. They did a song called Outbreak of Love, and it was like quite jarring for this band that's, you know, mostly sort of about politics and all that sort of thing, to do this song about, you know, personal relationships and that sort of thing. But I mean, some of the other personal relationship songs I've really quite liked, but this one just, yeah. So then we get into Double Agent, and this song, oh, I am really, really conflicted about this song, because musically, the song has a lot going for it. It's really interesting. There's some really good passages in it. I like the lyric about the sort of the idea of being in a situation that you absolutely dread and that you'd rather be anywhere but here, sort of thing. But the spoken word verses, to me, they just sound goofy. I mean, I really couldn't think of any other way to say it. They sound goofy, and I don't know if that was what they were going for with this song, whether this was meant to be a more light-hearted thing from Rush. I don't know, but it just, yeah, I think just, it didn't grab me. The way that he speaks those lyrics too, it sounds almost like a you know, a 1940s narration on some sort of pirate movie or something.
Now that may have actually been intentional. I'm not sure if it was or not. I actually like the spoken word parts here, but I could definitely see how that would be a subjective taste thing for sure. It's it definitely stands out. But I don't know how much you might have noticed on the previous material, because it's not always obvious on their albums as it is in interviews or concerts, but they have a great sense of humor. All three of the guys. Neil had a great sense of humor. Geddy and Alex still do. They're known as this very serious band, and the lyrics are generally very serious, but they goof around in concert. They crack jokes with each other nonstop, wear costumes in their interviews, and make funny little videos to be played in between songs. And I kind of wonder if that was I don't know, like maybe like a old film noir narration type thing. Maybe them just having a
Yeah,
little bit of fun there. I'd never really thought about that before, and yeah,
it's
I
something
could
that could,
actually see them.
it's something that could grow on me with repeated listens. You know, I've only listened to the album sort of 4 or 5 times, but yeah, as I say, the music's so good on this song that maybe I'll get used to the spoken word part as I listen to this album more, because musically it's one of the best songs on the album as far as I'm concerned. So
I will say, I am aware of one of the albums you have coming up, and I am really curious to hear your reaction to a specific song now, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
fair enough. So the next one is Leave That Thing Alone. And the opening of this track almost has kind of a Talking Heads feel to it, to me, that sort of quickly strummed guitar and the sort of funky bass going with it. And I always love to hear a band of great musicians, as Rush absolutely are, do instrumental pieces. and just let themselves stretch out for a few minutes. And, you know, all three of these guys get to show their chops in this song, which is really, really good. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album, probably one of my favorite 3 or 4 all up. Really, really great instrumental. And I think this might be the first instrumental track that I've had on a Rush album thus far. And I'm hoping that they will do a few more.
Yeah, I think you're right. Looking at the 4 you've already done, yeah.
So I'm hoping there will be some more instrumental tracks as I go along in the Rush catalog. It sounds like they might be. So
Would you like a spoiler, or do you want it to be completely
a little
surprised?
minor one, yeah.
There will be a few more.
Oh, that's good.
I really like the groove on this song too.
Yeah.
They're showing their chops, but they also keep that groove going the whole time. It's practically danceable. Well, it is danceable, and no practically about it. That's no apologies. It's a full-on dance tune. How about that? All right, maybe not quite that far, but there are a couple of them that might be a bit more complex than this too. So I'm definitely curious to hear what you think about those.
Oh, those will probably be right up my alley, I think.
Especially if you're looking for the more proggy stuff.
Yeah. So then we get into Cold Fire. This is another relationship song, but it's one with a sort of a slightly darker hue to it lyrically. Musically, I could actually hear this with this if they did a slightly different arrangement, a bit more synths and stuff. This would have fit in on some of the 80s Rush albums that I've listened to, I think. Just the sort of way the melodies go and that sort of thing. I think the music sounds quite upbeat, whereas the lyric is sort of basically, well, it's sort of a conversation between a man and a woman in a relationship. And I've got to say, the man in this relationship comes off as a bit of a dick.
Yes, he does.
You know, and there's a quite bluesy solo from Alex on this song, which is, I haven't really heard him play in that sort of bluesy style before, I don't think. But just again, shows the versatility of him as a guitar player.
I had one of my other options that I was considering. Yeah, I hope you get to that sometime in the near future. You might find a bit more of that sort of thing.
Yeah. But I felt like that idea that the guy was coming off as a bit of an idiot in this song, I felt like that was a deliberate choice in the lyric. Like he was trying to make the man look foolish.
Yeah, I remember actually reading something about that, how he specifically went about writing the lyrics to this song. And I wish I could remember specifically what it was, but yeah, he had a definite goal in mind there. This was something he'd never done before, that particular conversational style like that. It was a bit of a challenge he set for himself lyrically.
Yeah. And then the last song is Everyday Glory. And I said that lyrically this song kind of harkens back to Middletown Dreams on Power Windows, because it's a song about ordinary people and their struggles and dreams and that sort of thing. Musically, it has a bit of a U2 or Simple Minds vibe to it for me, which again I haven't really heard in a Rush song before. But again, I like both of those bands, especially the sort of 80s music. That's what I think this sounds like, this sort of 80s U2 or Simple Minds. And especially the guitar part in the middle of this song, very Simple Mindsy or U2-y. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I absolutely agree with that. As you were starting to say that, that's another thing that I picked up earlier in re-listening to this. Alex's guitar really stood out there, and it definitely gave me that same kind of vibe. That it didn't sound like his normal style of playing. it almost sounded like he was cribbing another style altogether as a little tribute. And I thought it worked quite well for the song, though.
Yeah, I think it works well. It's just sort of bit of the Edge or Charlie Burchill from Simple Minds, that sort of thing. That's what it reminded me of anyway. If you can think of someone else in the comments, please let me know. But yeah, overall, I really liked this album. It's probably still, I think my favorite so far is still Clockwork Angels, which is going to be my very first Rush album that I own. I've ordered a vinyl copy of it. There was a 2022 reissue of it that I managed to pick a copy of up online. So in about a month's time, maybe by the time of the next show, who knows, I might actually have my very first Rush record in my collection. But I really do like this album. I think when it's good, it's great. There are a couple of songs that maybe aren't quite as good. It's a bit like Hold Your Fire in that respect for me. I found Hold Your Fire was an album where the highs were really high, but then the songs that didn't quite make it for me, just
Brought
kind
it
of
down a notch.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd probably think of it in that respect. Obviously, those two albums don't sound anything like each other, but just as far as the quality goes. Pardon?
But both Peter Collins produced albums.
Yes. Yeah, as was Power Windows, I think. Yeah. So no, thank you very much, Bill, for recommending this album for me. And thank you very much for coming on the channel and discussing it with me. I really, really appreciate it.
I'm quite glad to take part in it.
We'll definitely have to have you on again sometime soon for another chat. Maybe we can do a Joe Jackson show or something.
I've actually thought about suggesting that. Maybe go a little deeper than do on the Contrarians episode there.
Anyway, thank you very much, as I say, for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you please do like, share, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please go and have a look at some of my other videos. That really helps the channel out as well. Everything's playlisted. So if you want to see some of my other Bicycle Legs Discovers Rush episodes, there's a playlist for that. If you want to see some of my studio albums ranked shows, there's a playlist for that. If you want to see some of my anniversary album shows, there's a playlist for that, and so on and so on. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Bicycle Legs on Instagram and Twitter, and there's now a Bicycle Legs dedicated Facebook page that you can follow. Links are all in the description. Please come and have a look. It would really, really help, especially on Facebook. You can come and join in the conversation there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.